Wow, I'm hanging out with royalty here. Let me start with C. Thomas. You have a rich history in the film industry with iconic roles in classics, The Outsiders, E.T. What drew you to the role of a retired bull rider in Ride?
Well, briefly, my father was a professional bull rider for 10 years before he became a stunt man. And rodeo was a big part of my life growing up. I was 1979, 1980, 1981, California State junior all around champion. Wanted to be a professional cowboy. It was a big part of my life before this whole acting thing took over. And when Ride presented itself, to be honest, I had more reservations and hesitations than I did um, uh, really any sort of plans to do the movie. The last thing I wanted to do was be a part of something that wasn't authentic. And Hollywood has a tendency to jump into westerns or rural pictures and not really care too much about those subtleties and nuances that make those pictures authentic. And I had some big concerns, but working with people like Forey J. Smith, who's he plays Lloyd on Yellowstone, and he's a professional cowboy. He rode bareback horses and bulls. When Annabeth came on board to play my wife, I was surrounded by really cool, good, solid people. And the director writer also plays my son in the picture. His name is Jake Allen. Was really committed to making an authentic piece, and he was open to suggestions and to some changes that a lot of other people would have um, possibly been afraid of. So um, we gelled as a group very quickly, and Annabeth and I were thrown into the fire immediately. I think our first scene was this heated argument outside when we literally had just met each other, and we had to go at it right away. And that can go either way. That could either be a terrible experience or a great experience. But she's a champ, she's a pro, a phenomenal actress, and we bonded after that moment. We only had 18 days to shoot this movie, so there wasn't a lot of prep time, and there wasn't a lot of time to fix anything. So we had to be on our toes from moment one, and everybody just did an amazing job.
Yeah, Annabeth, you have an extensive background in both film and television as well. How does working on a project like this compare to experiences like the X-Files or other larger projects?
These kinds of jobs when they come around are the special ones. They're gritty, and they're like Tommy said, you don't have a lot of time for attitudes, or you just have to get in the dirt and do the work and scuffle around and find your way. And in the end, sometimes I prefer these kind of jobs because you're just in it, and there's no bullshit. You'd have time, and there's no time for bullshit. So there's something really refreshing about that. It's like guerrilla filmmaking, and Tommy and I really got behind Jake, and for I think probably for veterans like ourselves, it's a little daunting to come into a project where someone's, you're like, oh, is he going to be a little over his skis or not? But he was so skilled at letting us do our thing, and wearing all the hats. And like with Tommy, you just know we've both been around a long time, and we're here to just get in it and do it. So it was really refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that Ride is kind of messy, flawed, painful, and real. And I get that. Even right from the trailer, I was hooked. How did you prepare to embody such a multifaceted character? Because your character in particular had quite a few different layers, wore many hats, as you mentioned. How did you get in that mindset for this?
Me or
Yeah,
Tommy? Because I
you.
feel like
I
that
think you,
question
yeah.
applies to both. I mean, this is the stuff you crave as an actress. That's especially as a woman playing someone, a complicated woman who isn't just one thing. Yes, she's a wife, but and a mom and a sheriff, and she's not a traditional any one of those things. She's flawed herself, and Jake has that line that I say, 12 months turned into 4 years, and it's a decision I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. So, and we all know as we get on in life, life wails on you and you got to live with your mistakes. And I just think it's great. These are the kind of roles you really want to play that aren't so just wrapped up in a pretty package.
Before I jump back to Thomas, is that wallpaper behind you? Because it's the
It
opposite
is.
of messy, and I really dig it. So
It is.
kudos.
It's a little wallpaper, one of those things we did during the pandemic when we got crazy with our staying at home.
Awesome. I love it. It's a beautiful backdrop. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
throwing that in there.
Well, we
To-
should talk about the two masks that you have behind you and all the videos.
yeah, I'm a VHS collector. I've been featured in a few documentaries about collecting. This is a challenging role. We did talk about kind of wearing multiple hats, and I thought that was the kind of the most interesting aspect of your character. But
Yeah.
what was the most challenging part of this role, and ultimately, how did you kind of overcome it?
God, it's like what Tommy was saying was we had no time. It
Yeah,
was hard and fast, and sometimes that aids it, and then there's those little challenges too that make it a little complicated. Things like the wardrobe, like we're getting it all done on the fly, and um, but really just making sure that in the pace that we were working, that it all made sense.
yeah.
So just staying on track was kind of the hardest thing for me.
It was this filmed in Texas because it definitely had a Texas like flair to it.
No, we filmed it in Nashville,
Oh
which
wow.
is, like a by a sort of a subsidiary.
The reason I ask is because I'm calling from Houston,
Oh,
and
great.
Stephenville is actually not too far away from where I'm at and from where I work. So it's a lot of times with Texas in these films, these Hollywood films, they don't get it right, and so I really look to indie films for them to get Texas or any of the surrounding areas correct. And this, like we were talking about, it did have a authenticity about it, and I really appreciated that as a Texan.
Yeah, I think we worked really hard, Jake, especially to honor Stephenville. Tommy, were you guys just there in Stephenville or for the Cowtown or something?
Yeah, that was actually in Fort Worth,
Okay.
but that was a big part of you know I felt a big responsibility for Texans in general. The last thing I wanted to do was present a movie that wasn't authentic, and the fact that we won the Western Heritage Award, and the fact that we won an award at the Dallas Film Festival. You were there, of course, and the fact that we're being embraced by people from the cowboy and the rural community means everything to me. That to me means we win, and um, that was my biggest fear going into this project. And I think the filmmakers, Jake, and our DP Keith Lehman, did a great job making sure that they gave us the proper arena to work in, so we could co-create that together.
Thomas, before we let you guys go, I have to ask about your particular role. It's very emotionally charged, very reminiscent of like Criminal Minds. You really pulled some jokers or some aces here for this role. Is there anything that you did particularly to kind of get in that mindset to be as intense as you are? Because I do really like it when you show your range, and this one definitely showcased that.
I appreciate that. I tend to look for that in characters. I love to play broken, flawed characters and find a way to inject them with humanity. There's something that I find to be quite challenging when you're presenting a character that could be deemed unlikable to some degree, and by the end of it, we've learned to love him. And whether it's the Reaper or John Hawkins, that's the challenge that I love to face when I'm looking at a character. And there were a lot of obstacles. This was a man who was struggling in his marriage. He had a child that was battling cancer, a son from another marriage that was struggling with addiction, and he was struggling with his own self-value because he gave up his dreams which was to be a professional bull rider. And, you know, he's pulling a minimum wage job, trying to make ends meet, feeling like he is a nobody. So the deck was stacked against him. And I feel going into that, it really allows me to roll up my sleeves and gives me, you know, a lot to play with. And when you get on the other side of this movie, even though we go through all those challenges, Annabeth and I reunite and decide to give it a good go, and the family sticks together. And I think that says a lot, you know, especially in today's community.
I couldn't agree more. Again, you know, Thomas, Annabeth, thank you guys so much for your time. You know, thank you for doing Texas right. It you know, it seems like no one can do it, but you guys did. So thank you again so much for your time.
That means the world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jessie. Take care.